It is 42 minutes after 7 o'clock this morning. Starting today, there are big changes to what a homeowners association can require of people who live in communities governed by one.
Communities once labeled as the poster child for cheap waterfront living during the pandemic, now being labeled one of the worst places to sell a home.
Florida's real estate market is heading for a meltdown worse than the Great Recession. Back in 2008, prices tumbled nearly 30% nationwide. But in 2025, some Florida metros are already posting year-over-year losses of 10% or more, with hundreds of thousands in equity wiped out. Mortgage rates near 7% and insurance premiums pushing $10,000 a year are crushing buyers, while inventory in certain cities has doubled in just 24 months. These are the warning signs most people aren't watching, but insiders see the cracks forming. Stay with me until the end, because I'll reveal the 10 Florida cities where the correction is hitting hardest right now. Number 10, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Fort Lauderdale, a dreamy beachside city that suddenly hit some real estate turbulence. If you thought this sunny paradise was immune to housing crashes, think again. First, let's talk inventory explosion. The number of homes on the market in Fort Lauderdale has jumped by over 80% year over year, according to regional MLS data. That's not just a bump, it's a flood. But wait, it gets juicier. One of the most overlooked culprits behind the crash is skyrocketing homeowners insurance. Florida in general is hurting, but Fort Lauderdale is especially hard hit due to its coastal risk. Insurance premiums have increased by more than 50% in just 2 years, with many homeowners now paying upwards of $7,000 a year. Add in ballooning HOA fees, some topping $500 a month, and buyers are backing off fast. Investors? They're fleeing too. During the 2022 to 2024 frenzy, investors were buying up condos like candy. But in 2025, many of those same units are underwater, literally and financially. A recent report showed that 30% of investment properties purchased during the boom are now listed below their original purchase price. Even Airbnb hosts are feeling the squeeze, with tourism dipping and occupancy rates down nearly 12 from 2023. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta recently classified Fort Lauderdale as severely overvalued, with home prices 28% above sustainable levels. When the Fed speaks, smart money listens. So, what do you get when you mix rising costs, falling demand, and too many listings? A textbook housing correction. Fort Lauderdale might still look like $1 million postcard, but behind the palm trees, the market is wobbling hard. Number 9, Cape Coral, Florida. Cape Coral, aka the waterfront wonderland, has over 400 miles of canals. But in 2025, the housing market here feels more like a sinking ship than a dreamboat. What was once one of Florida's hottest relocation spots is now facing one of the biggest market cooldowns. And the data? It's enough to make any real estate investor sweat. Let's start with home prices. During the pandemic boom, median home values skyrocketed by over 60% in just 2 years. By 2023, the average home in Cape Coral was flirting with $425,000. Fast forward to 2025, and prices are down 5 to 7% year over year, with many homes sitting on the market for 70 plus days. So, what's going wrong? First, overbuilding. Developers couldn't pour concrete fast enough in 2021 to 2023, and now Cape Coral is flooded with new construction. Inventory has surged to nearly 4,000 active listings, up from about 1,800 in 2023. That's more than double in just 3 years. Then there's the utility crisis. Cape Coral has one of Florida's most expensive utility expansion fees. New homeowners in areas undergoing utility hookups must pay over $30,000 in assessments, which has become a major deal breaker for buyers. Real estate powerhouse Zillow recently downgraded Cape Coral from hot market to cooling rapidly on their market heat index. Cape Coral is still a postcard perfect place, but the housing market in 2025? It's more of a cautionary tale than a real estate fantasy. But here's the kicker. If you think Cape Coral is bad, wait until you see what's happening in our next city. Number 8, Ocala, Florida. You might know Ocala as Florida's horse capital, but in 2025, this once quiet, affordable gem is galloping headfirst into a housing market slowdown. At first glance, Ocala feels immune. Lush pastures, charming downtown, and no coastline to battle hurricanes, right? But don't let the serenity fool you. Ocala's market is wobbling hard. Here's the shocking truth. Ocala had around 800 active listings in early 2022. Fast forward to now, and that number has exploded to almost 3,000. That's a 275% increase in available homes. And with supply far outweighing demand, prices are starting to dip. Homes that were listed for $310,000 last year are now priced at $275,000 and still sitting for weeks. According to Redfin, the average time on market has jumped to 56 days, up from just 19 days 2 years ago. One of the key drivers? Overbuilding. Developers poured into Ocala during the post-pandemic housing frenzy drawn by cheap land and booming interest. Many overestimated demand. Entire subdivisions in places like Silver Spring Shores are now ghost neighborhoods with for sale signs dotting every block. And let's talk about affordability. Ironically, it's become unaffordable for locals. Home prices went up over 55% between 2020 and 2023, pricing out first-time buyers and renters alike. So, while Ocala still has horse trails, rolling hills, and small-town charm, its housing market in 2025 is stumbling from oversupply affordability pressures and a shrinking buyer pool. The horses might be running free, but the housing market, it's heading for a hard landing. Number 7. Tampa, Florida. Tampa, a city that's been one of Florida's real estate darlings until now. In 2025, Tampa is facing a harsh market reality check. Just 2 years ago, buyers were practically battling it out on front lawns, but now, the vibe has totally changed. Housing inventory in Tampa has surged past 5,400 active listings, up from just under 3,000 in early 2023. That's an eye-popping 80% jump in just 24 months. Why the spike? For one, builders went a little wild. New condos, subdivisions, and high-rise towers popped up all over the city. That construction boom collided with rising interest rates now hovering around 6.8%, pricing out a ton of potential buyers. Monthly mortgage payments that were around $1,800 are now pushing close to $2,600 for the same house. And don't forget Tampa's hurricane exposure. After a string of storms and a tightening insurance market, some carriers have exited the state altogether, making it harder and more expensive to insure properties. A single-family home near the Bay that once cost $2,500 a year to insure now averages over $5,200. The National Association of Realtors recently ranked Tampa as the third most overvalued major metro in Florida, with prices 32% above long-term averages. For a city once hailed as Florida's real estate powerhouse, 2025 is bringing a not-so-sunny outlook. But Tampa's troubles are nothing compared to what's brewing in our next city. Number 6. Jacksonville, Florida. Jacksonville, where sunshine and southern charm meet a real estate market on shaky legs. At first glance, you might not expect Florida's largest city by area to be struggling. But look closer and the cracks are impossible to ignore. In 2025, Jacksonville's housing inventory has ballooned to nearly 4,000 active listings, the highest it's been in over a decade. That's a massive leap from the 2,200 homes on the market in early 2023. The root of the problem? Overbuilding and overpricing. Builders pushed hard in suburbs like Orange Park and Middleburg, but demand just hasn't kept up. Also, the area has seen an influx of job losses in the logistics and shipping sectors. Jacksport's freight volumes dropped by 14% year over year, causing ripple effects in employment and income. With fewer buyers qualifying for mortgages, homes are staying on the market longer, averaging 51 days compared to just 21 back in 2022. The icing on the cake? Investor retreat. Big national firms that once scooped up homes here for rentals are now dumping inventory. Data shows that nearly 1 in 5 homes on the market in Jacksonville is investor-owned, and many are priced to sell fast. CoreLogic Analytics show Jacksonville facing a 50 to 20% price correction over the next 18 months as supply and demand rebalance. Real estate mogul Sam Zell, before his passing, specifically called out Jacksonville as a market built on speculation rather than fundamentals. So, while Jacksonville might still have great golf courses and river views, its housing market in 2025 is looking less like a sure bet and more like a waiting game. The port city's boom is officially busting. Number 5, Sarasota, Florida. Sarasota, known for its white sand beaches, art scene, and retirees in linen pants sipping cocktails by the marina. But behind the palm fringe perfection, Sarasota is dealing with a real estate hangover in 2025. This once red-hot luxury market has started cooling fast, and the stats are louder than the seagulls on Siesta Key. Let's start with inventory. Sarasota's housing stock has soared to levels not seen since 2015, with over 3,700 homes listed for sale compared to just 1,800 2 years ago. That's more than double, and it's putting serious pressure on prices. Homes that were once fetching $1.2 million are now struggling to move at $975,000. Why the slowdown? First, Sarasota's market got a bit too hot for its own good. It was labeled one of the most overvalued metros in Florida. Zillow estimates show it peaked at 38% over fair market value in 2022. And finally, let's talk market timing. Homes are now sitting for 91 days on average, up from just 32 in 2022. Realtors are cutting prices, offering credits, and even staging open houses with wine and charcuterie to lure buyers. It's a shift from a seller's paradise to a buyer's market, if buyers are willing to take the plunge. Credit Suisse analysts predict Sarasota will see 12 to 18% price declines through 2025 as the luxury bubble deflates. So yes, Sarasota is still stunning, but in 2025, that picture-perfect lifestyle comes with market turbulence. The art scene is thriving, but the housing market, it's becoming abstract. We're only halfway through this list, and the next cities show the cracks running even deeper. Stay ahead. Subscribe now for real-time market alerts and insider updates. Number 4, Port St. Lucie, Florida. Port St. Lucie. And let me just say, it's one of the most dramatic housing stories in all of Florida right now. In 2025, this once affordable coastal paradise has turned into one of the most overvalued housing markets in the state, and reality is finally catching up. Let's talk about that overvaluation first. According to data from Florida Atlantic University, Port St. Lucie's homes are priced at 41% above their long-term value. That's not just a bubble, that's a balloon waiting to pop. Back in 2022, the median home price soared to over $410,000, while the average household income here is just around $62,000. That's a huge affordability gap, but it gets trickier. Inventory is up 35% year over year, with new development still hitting the market even as demand is cooling. A big chunk of buyers during the boom were from out of state, especially from New York and New Jersey, looking for sunny escapes. But as economic uncertainties grow, those buyers are disappearing, and so are their offers. Builders in Port St. Lucie are now slashing prices. In some newer communities, you'll find homes that were listed for $430,000 in 2023 now reduced to $1,600 or less. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway also reduced its Florida exposure, specifically mentioning markets like Port St. Lucie as speculative rather than investment grade. In 2025, Port St. Lucie is learning that what goes up must come down. And while it's still got great golf courses and nearby beaches, the housing market is headed for a pretty steep correction. The Treasure Coast treasure hunt is officially over. Number 3, Fort Myers, Florida. Just a couple of years ago, this vibrant Gulf Coast city was leading the pack in Florida's housing boom. But in 2025, Fort Myers is pumping the brakes hard, and the housing market here is officially in correction mode. First, some context. Fort Myers was one of the fastest growing metros in the entire US from 2022 to 2024. Home prices jumped by more than 65% in just 24 months, with median values peaking around $4,300. But when growth moves that fast, a pullback is almost inevitable. And now it's here. Prices have dropped around 6% year over year, and sellers are getting anxious. Inventory has exploded. In 2023, there were about 3,200 homes for sale. Now, we're looking at over 5,000 listings, and they're sitting much longer, up to 60 days or more on average. That means more competition, more price cuts, and more homes falling out of contract. Why the stall? Fort Myers was heavily targeted by out-of-state investors and snowbirds, but the economic slowdown, rising interest rates, and insurance nightmares have scared many away. After Hurricane Ian, insurance premiums in Fort Myers spiked dramatically. Average annual costs now hover around $9,000 to $11,000 per home, even in non-flood zones. Federal Reserve Governor Christopher Waller specifically mentioned Fort Myers in a recent speech about housing bubbles, calling the market's trajectory concerning and reminiscent of 2006. In 2025, Fort Myers is a case study in how fast growth can turn into fast trouble. It's still got charm, beaches, and sunshine, but the real estate market, it's taking a serious breather. The River City's rapid rise is becoming a rapid fall. Number 2, St. Petersburg, Florida. In 2025, this Pinellas County gem is officially in correction territory, and the numbers are loud and clear. Housing inventory has ballooned to more than 5,600 homes, the highest in nearly 8 years and double the 2,800 listings in 2023. More listings mean more competition, and sellers are starting to panic. Nearly 1 in 4 homes listed this spring has already seen a price cut. The median home price peaked near $450 in 2024, but has now dropped closer to $390,000. Yet homes are still sitting. Redfin reports the average time on market has stretched to 40 days, up from just 17 during the boom. What's behind the dip? St. Pete's luxury and vacation markets surged during the pandemic, fueled by investors. But with mortgage rates hovering near 7%, demand has cooled, leaving many owners underwater, especially Airbnb hosts competing in an oversaturated rental scene. Insurance is another beast. Proximity to Tampa Bay brings high flood risk, and premiums have jumped 60 to 70% since 2023. Some waterfront homes now cost $10,000 plus annually in insurance alone. JP Morgan recently flagged St. Petersburg as one of Florida's most overextended markets, with prices 34% above sustainable levels. Affordability is also stretched thin. The city's median household income is under $58,000, far below what today's housing costs demand. Even with remote workers moving in, many longtime residents are heading to cheaper towns like Largo or Clearwater. Analysts call it a perfect storm of overvaluation, insurance woes, and fading demand. St. Pete still shines culturally, but its housing bubble is bursting. Number 1, Lakeland, Florida. Lakeland, nestled right between Tampa and Orlando, has officially claimed the top spot as Florida's most vulnerable housing market in 2025. It's not just slowing down here, it's sliding fast. This mid-sized city went from boomtown to bustville in less than 3 years, and now the cracks are showing big time. Lakeland's housing inventory has jumped from around 3,000 listings in 2023 to a whopping 4,800 in 2024-2025. A 60% increase. That's a massive oversupply for a city that's only got about 115,000 residents. More homes on the market means more price cuts, more stagnation, and more frustrated sellers. Home values that soared to nearly $350,000 in 2023 have begun sliding. Recent data shows a 2 to 4% drop month over month, and many properties are being relisted below their appraised value. According to Zillow, homes now average 53 days on market, more than double from the boom period. But what caused Lakeland's tumble? First, overbuilding. The city saw a frenzy of suburban development, especially in South Lakeland and North Polk County. Builders flooded the market, but demand couldn't keep up, especially with mortgage rates nearing 7%. And here's the kicker. Lakeland was a top target for investors in 2021 to 2023 thanks to its affordable tag. But now, those investors are backing out or panic selling. A shocking 31% of current listings in Lakeland are investor-owned, and many are slashing prices just to get out. Wells Fargo's real estate division recently published an internal memo calling Lakeland the canary in the coal mine for Florida's broader housing correction. Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta research identified Lakeland as a textbook example of speculative overbuilding that must correct dramatically. So there you have it, the 10 Florida cities where the housing party is officially over. For buyers, patience will pay off. Prices are still sliding, and the best deals are ahead. Sellers who bought early may still have equity, but waiting too long could mean bigger losses. Investors should focus on cash flow, not appreciation, and renters now have the upper hand to negotiate or move for better deals. Finding this breakdown useful? Subscribe for daily market signals and updates you won't see anywhere else. Protect your wallet, hit subscribe now, and share this with anyone thinking about buying in Florida before it's too late. And I want to hear from you. What are you seeing locally? Incentives? Insurance spikes? Drop your experiences in the comments.